So, you can do, I guess we're going to find out what Ben Shapiro's dating advice is. I would imagine it's just you got to keep that P word dry, like the Sahara Desert. Gives it some gription. I almost want to do this one first. Okay, fine. Let's see what Ben Shapiro. We're gonna start with something easy. This isn't even political necessarily, except for the fact that it involves political commentator Ben Shapiro. Him giving dating advice. So let's see what Ben Shapiro has to say about how to court a woman.
Because we had a couple of calls yesterday that were relationship calls. We are taking your relationship calls. So, dear Abby in the house here, over at the Ben Shapiro Show. Garrett in Wyoming, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Garrett.
Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Oh, it's going okay.
I was just wondering, should I ask a girl out, or should I try to keep the relationship and not ruin the friendship?
Colston with 20 bits. Step 1, have an arranged marriage. Thank you, Altered Rin, for subscribing with a 3-month streak. Haven't been able to catch many streams lately since I usually stream when I'm in class, but I'm free on Fridays, so I'm ready for Chud. Chud's nice. Let me see, did I miss anything? Okay. Yeah, I don't know why someone's calling Ben Shapiro for relationship advice. Like, even if you like Ben Shapiro is not a relationship advice person. Oh, Hype Train, thank you, everyone, for support and subs and everything. Appreciate that.
Should I do?
You should ask the girl.
I can't do the hats today because I don't want to mess up my hair prior to going on someone else's show. I'll put other stuff on, though. I'll do some of the I have a vest from Tinfoil Tuesday. I also have a cloak. I'll figure some stuff out to put on. I'll do this when we finish the Hype Train, though, so I can just do it all at once.
Girl out. So I'm a big proponent of being very straightforward when it comes to relationship stuff. I think it is a horrible idea for guys to try and sort of ingratiate themselves with girls and then become friends, and then maybe we'll see where this goes.
Okay, Ben, maybe you become friends with someone first, and that's how you determine if you want to get to know them and want this to go further. How do you know you even want to be in a relationship with someone or go on a date with them if you don't already know you're compatible? I'm not saying you can't, like, go on Tinder or go on some other site and find someone and hook up with them and then immediately just go on a date. That happens, but a lot of relationships start with, like, people just getting to know each other as friends, and then it expands into something more. I'm imagining a situation where Ben Shapiro is talking to any woman, and she's like, oh, that's nice, Ben. And he goes, you know what? Right now, I just need to say, actually, if you think about this further, we might be wasting our time if we're not planning to take this into a physical realm. So actually, I think that we should probably go out on a date, and I will pay. I will pick your food for you. We will get boiled chicken with mayonnaise, and you will enjoy it. We will return to my place where I have made my bed to perfection, and we will fornicate atop it. How does that sound? I think that's what Ben Shapiro asking someone out on a date would probably sound like. Thank you, SNR, oh god, I can't read that. Thank you for the 9 bits, and Abby My Dudes with 12 bits. Thank you for the 12 bits. Sheet with a hole in it.
Number one, there is the serious danger of being friend-zoned, meaning that
once God, no, Ben, no! Oh, God. There's no such thing as friend-zoned people. I think this has been covered to death at this point, and everyone knows this. Like, you are not owed a relationship because you happen to be friends with a woman or because you happen to get along. Friend zone implies that, like, you are owed a relationship and instead you are put down to the level of friend, as if it's like a hierarchy, and that relationships are somehow, like, inherently better than friends. And I'm not gonna say, like, relationships aren't an amazing integral part of life, but I'm saying, like, they're just different, right? Romantic relationships and platonic relationships are both very important for people to have. Being friend-zoned is basically saying that you had no expectation of being platonic friends with this person, and you were only being nice to them in the hopes that you would get in their pants. And it's very childish. This is what, like, high schoolers and middle schoolers think. This is not how adult people think about each other. Can't say Ben doesn't know his audience. Probably true. 25% of the hype train.
starts to think of you as a friend rather than as a romantic interest, that could be a serious problem. And two, you could invest an awful lot of time in building up to a relationship that you actually are not particularly interested in, because it turns out that you're romantically interested in someone, and it creates an awful lot of tension. You know, I tend to be of the When Harry Met Sally mindset when it comes to...
Oh, God. Look, I like When Harry Met Sally. It's an entertaining movie, but the idea that's put forward by When Harry Met Sally that men and women cannot be platonic friends is the most boomer shit ever. The idea that because your genitals can theoretically interlock, that you must have a romantic relationship with someone you get along with of the opposite sex is ridiculous. Who thinks this way? Like, what? No! You can have platonic friendships with people regardless of whether or not they happen to be of a gender that you were attracted to. Incredibly stupid.
Can men be friends with women? And you can be, I think you can be friends with women if the boundaries are very, very clearly set. And this is particularly true if everybody's already married. So, for example,
What does the fact that one person is wearing a ring have to do with anything? There already are social boundaries that exist in society. Why do you literally need to be like, actually, just because I need to definitely make an opinion that, since we are, of the opposite sex and, we have a platonic friendship, since you are not married, I don't think we can be around each other, otherwise I might slip and fall into your, wet P word. At Colston, 20 bits. By that logic, bi people can't be friends with anyone? Right, it's stupid. DM Trey, let's say you've been a... Oh no. Do I want to read this? Nope, I'm not going to read that. You did give me a bit. Okay. Let's say, hypothetically... God damn it. Let's say you've been a bad girl. Let's say, hypothetically, you've been a naughty girl even, okay? And if you were a naughty girl, you would be my... You would be my dirty little... I'm not going to say that, right? Then, hypothetically speaking, you would be... Oh, no, I'm not going to say that either. Oh, God. Okay, I can read from here on. Now, let's say that you're also a daddy's girl, and that we've established that you're both a bad girl and a daddy's girl, and that I believe you'd agree with me when I say you deserve a spanking. Am I not correct? Yeah, I can't read a lot of that for potential TOS. If not on Twitch, then on YouTube. I don't know. Anyway, we got one level of the hype train, so I'll put one thing on. Give me a sec.
There's nothing funny about
How about
tools
that?
Of capitalism.
Oh god, can I fit this over my head without untying it? That'd be convenient. Nope, sure can't. Although I must have gotten it off. How else would it be tied still? Although in fairness, I think Baja was wearing this at one point. Oh no, there we go. That'll fit. That'll do. Very regal.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Welcome, Daddy Sume. Yeah, I'm on early because I'm doing a guest spot on the line later, so I wanted to be able to have time to get ready for that.
There's
and
nothing
to
funny about the tools
still
of
put this
capitalism.
stuff on YouTube. Thank you, FlowerGirl13, for the 5 bits. And Daddy Sume, thank you for continuing your sub 4-month streak. Yeet! TOS of the soul.
There's
Yeah.
nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
I'm good friends with Elisha Krause. Elisha and I have known each other for a very, very long time, and we've known each other when both of us were married. And so it was always obvious to everyone that this was never going to be a thing, nor did either of us want it to be a thing.
Okay, but why isn't that the same situation in a lot of platonic friendships? Like, I would think most platonic friendships between, we're talking about men and women here because Ben Shapiro wouldn't probably talk about people who are bi or gay. So let's just talk about, like, heteronormative individuals because that's what Ben Shapiro was talking about. If you're a man and a woman and you're just platonic friends, why are you always concerned it's going to slip into more than that? Because if you're in that relationship in terms of platonic friendships, then you're already going to know the social boundaries. They already exist. Like, what's a good example for this? Ben wouldn't consider me a woman like I am because I'm trans, and I don't think he thinks positively of
There's nothing
trans
funny about the
individuals.
tools of
Well, I'll use
capitalism.
me for an example because I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Jake and I have been friends for like 10 years, maybe more. I don't know. And even though for a lot of that, I was outwardly
nothing
presenting
funny
as
about the tools of
masculine,
capitalism.
and he didn't know I was trans. Regardless, at no point did I ever feel like our relationship, even after I came out, is different or weird because he's a dude and I'm a lady, right? Like, why would it matter? Jake and I are just friends, right? Why can you not view your platonic relationships as
There's
that?
nothing funny about
Why
the
are you
tools of
constantly
capitalism.
on the edge of wanting to have sex with your friends? It's so weird. Obowan, with a bit. A little over 5 months on Twitch. Congrats. Thank you. I think most of us old school peeps saw the fan art. Which fan art?
But when you're single, particularly, those boundaries are really, really weird. And
Oh god, they're not that weird, Ben. Learn to read the room. I gotta turn the air on because this cloak is hot. Ben, if you're actually friends with your friends and you know them and you understand, like, social cues, then you recognize where the lines are. If you're platonic friends, you're platonic friends.
it gets weirder if you end up in a relationship and then you're still hanging out with a girl who is single, or if she's in a
Why? Why is that weird?
relationship and you're still hanging out with her and you're sort of a third wheel. So my typical feeling here is that you should be straightforward. I think the biggest mistake guys make is not being straightforward with girls when it comes to this sort of stuff. I think it's a huge mistake for men to sort of edge around and take their time. My strategy was always pretty straightforward. Again, I would, if I thought
Oh god, talking about this in terms of strategy is so icky to me.
a girl
Like, can't you just be a human being and have interactions with people, and if a relationship develops, good? Why does it need to be a strategy like you're using the dentist system from It's Always Sunny?
was attractive and I was interested in her, I would walk up to her and I would ask her out to coffee, and then we would see where it went from there. Because at least now the parameters are clear. I'm a big fan of clear parameters, Garrett.
Thanks, Ben. I know this will help me out and a lot of other people.
Well, I
Congrats on the
appreciate it,
move.
Garrett. So, yeah, have some courage, guys. What's the worst that happened? She says no. All right. Well, you know, your life ain't over. Elias in Florida, you're on the Ben Shapiro show. Go for it, Elias.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going, dude.
All right, man. So I'm a big fan of your show. I've been watching you for a while, and I have some questions here. So, or just one question. So I know when you and your wife were dating, you guys set some parameters as to what your beliefs were and kind of like what your principles were. But sometimes you unexpectedly fall in love with someone in your friend group or maybe a coworker or a classmate. And so that happened to me. I was with a girl for 5 years, but if I had chosen her from the start, I would have known that, you know,
There's nothing funny
me and her
about
had
the
different
tools of
beliefs. So my
capitalism.
question is,
Oh, I missed a bit message. Hold on, I'll go back. Dude Spanking Dude says, when I told her about Breonna Taylor's murders, aka the cops got no sentence, she just told me not to get angry since I can't do anything about that and that it won't ever happen to us. The privilege. Oh, gross. That's really, really gross.
when you have different
The idea that, like, don't worry about injustice, it won't happen to you, is so ridiculous.
beliefs of someone who you really like and you fall in love with and they share the same thing, do you still pursue the relationship? What do you do? If you are pursuing the relationship, what happens? Me and her drifted apart because we had different beliefs in the end, and that kind of made us drive apart. So,
Yeah.
you know, is this something I could have done differently, or are these relationships just doomed from the start?
So I think that habit is one of the worst things that can happen to a relationship. Habit happens to every relationship, by the way. This always happens. It happens within marriages. If you share values, that's fine, right? If you don't share values, then you can be stuck in a rut with somebody who you really have no future with. This is why when people tend to live together before they're married, the divorce rates are higher than if they actually just get married without living together.
I think that probably has more to do with, and this is a correlation, not causation thing, but the kind of people who are going to stay in a bad marriage and not get divorced are the kind of religious people who would not live together in the first place. It's not that people who live together first are less likely to get married or more likely to divorce. It's more so that if you are religious to the extent that you are not going to get married or that you're not going to get divorced, even in an unhappy marriage, they're the same kind of people who are going to not move in together. That's a correlation, not causation thing.
Because if you have marriage on the brain, rather than living together on the brain, then you actually look for the values from the outset. Now, Jonathan Haidt writes in his book, The Happiness Hypothesis, that the basic form that marriages and relationships tend to take is in the first couple of years, you have extremely high passionate love and very, very low companionate love. Companionate love meaning things that you share, values that you share, is sort of the love that builds up over time that is different from the I got to be with you every minute, I'm itching to be with you, which tends to very often manifest in physical ways. You see this in every marriage. It's not unusual. It is scientifically based. And what you have to realize is that after the first couple of years, that's going to wane. I mean, that is just a natural thing that happens. It tends to wane, and companionate love tends to replace it. Well, the problem is that if the basis for companionate love is not there, namely shared values, the willingness to build a life together, then things are going to fall apart. So what I've always said to people is, it's even more true for girls than it is for guys, actually, for women than it is for men, is that if you get into a relationship, the fear of being out of the relationship becomes more of a barrier to breaking up than the actual attractiveness of the relationship.
Oh, God. Okay, Ben, why do you think that's more so the case for women than men? Everyone in every situation like this, when they're dating someone and they're afraid of being alone, has trepidation about ending the relationship. This is not a gendered thing. This is a human thing. Isn't it proven that Ben doesn't eat the box? I mean, I would be incredibly shocked if he did.
People will stay in relationships for a long time because they're afraid of the alternative, as opposed to because they want to buy in. And so they'll stick around in a relationship they know is not working longer than is necessary because they don't have the courage to think, okay, what else is out there? With whom else could I form a deeper relationship? So if you fall in love, this is why I've always said, I said it on Joe Rogan's show, I maintain it, that if you are interested in a long-term relationship, you have to first make that switch in your head, and then you have to decide who fits the bill for that, as opposed to, quote-unquote, falling in love with somebody, and then you decide you want to be in a long-term relationship, where the check marks are just not the same.
Quote-unquote, falling in love with someone, first you must make a checklist about whether or not you are compatible in the ways that matter, and to me, that is making sure that they follow the same ridiculous backwards beliefs as myself. Yes, Ben, sharing value systems matters. I agree. But saying it the way you're saying it makes you sound like a weird alien that's like, I do not understand these human emotions.
I mean, it'd almost be like, okay, you start a business, and you're now looking for somebody to fill a particular role. That's a very different way of seeking an employee than you've been friends with a dude for a long time, and now you're starting a business, and you kind of like this person.
Comparing being in a relationship with someone that might turn into a marriage, or at the very least a long-term commitment, to opening a business is the most Ben Shapiro thing I could ever imagine. Actually, this, human emotion that you call, love is very similar to opening a, business. No, Ben, it's not, though. It's not. Andrew Dickerson with a bit. I genuinely think Ben might be on the spectrum. Not an insult, just an observation. I'm not going to comment on that. I have no way of saying or judging that statement. As Compu, he can't understand seeing a femoid and not thinking of her as a whole to F. I don't even know if Ben does think that way, though, because have you seen his thing about the song Wet Ass P-Word? He calls it Wet Ass P-Word.
And your friends, and so you hire them for the business. The former is likely to work out because you've actually tried to tailor what you are looking for to what the actual requirements are. The latter is unlikely to work out. You end up hiring your friend, he ends up being a schlub, and now your friendship is on the rocks, and it's really kind of stupid because your friendship is on the rocks and they're a bad employee, right? Like, the same thing happens in relationships. People tend to not think rationally about relationships, which makes sense because so much of it is passion. But if you know,
Tucker White 94, I'm still not convinced Ben Shapiro wasn't designed in some conservative think tank laboratory. Everything this guy says is nothing but robotic talking points.
Going in.
Well, he comes from a very wealthy family. If you've seen his sister, Abby Shapiro, she also has a YouTube channel. She's very similar.
What you are looking for and what you are looking to do with the relationship, you're much more like...
I would call them WASPy, but they're Jewish, so they're not, because WASP stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. They're definitely not Protestants, but they're like that. They're people who grew up with a ton of privilege, with a with money, where they never had to worry about, like, are we going to be able to pay rent next month? Are we going to be able to get food and afford school and all that stuff? They never had any of that, and I just don't think they understand what life is like for like 90% of people. It's really, really wild.
Likely to seek important factors. And if you're in a long-term relationship with somebody where there is no future, all you're doing is prolonging the agony by continuing it, Elias.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right, Julius in Maryland, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Julius.
Hi, Ben. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, so I have a question about, it's quite similar to something you mentioned a few minutes ago. I think it was your first call. So there's this girl who I've been friends with for a while, and I asked her out, and she said no, but she wants to remain friends. I guess she said she doesn't want to jeopardize the friendship. So I'm kind of caught in two minds here because, like, I wanted to become more than friends, but she doesn't want to be. So
okay, so that's the end of the story. You wanted to be more than friends. She doesn't. That's it. Don't push the issue. That's the end of the story. Period. What are you asking advice for? Like, should I harass this friend of mine because they don't want to be in a relationship with me? No. And I'm not even going to say here, I give Ben enough credit where I think he's going to say the same thing. I think even Ben Shapiro, weirdo that he is, recognizes that, like, if a friend doesn't want a relationship to continue further, you should drop the issue. I do, however, think Ben will probably say, like, well, you should just end the friendship too. That I don't necessarily agree with, because I think you can have platonic friendships with people of the opposite sex, but Tucker White 94 with the bit, how much do you want to bet Ben Shapiro pays people to call into his show? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. There's a ton of people who like Ben Shapiro, and acting like that people don't like Ben Shapiro is to bury your head in the sand. He has almost 2 million subscribers. People love Ben Shapiro. Don't act like he's some, like, fake figure being propped up. Don't get me wrong, does he get money from right-wing think tanks? I'm sure he does. That doesn't change the fact that his messaging resonates with a ton of people on the right. Dudes spanking dudes. Notice how it's only cis men asking? Yeah.
Yeah, don't count on it.
yeah.
Don't count on it. Once she said that she wants to be friends, that is her way of saying that she does not want to be anything more than friends. So now the question is, do you want to be friends? And the answer is probably no, right? Not because...
Oh, God. And this is my problem with people who talk about the friend zone, because they're looking at it from entirely their point of view. If she has friend zoned you, then you have relationship zoned her. Do you understand that getting to know someone and acting like someone's friend just to get into a relationship with them is wrong? Do you see that that's not manipulative and you're using that to try and ingratiate yourself to that person? Now, I'm not saying you can't, like, have a genuine platonic friendship and then eventually over time that grows into something more. That happens all the time, and that's completely fine. What I'm saying is, if you start trying to be friends with someone because in your head you're thinking, well, maybe this could blossom into something more, then you're being weird. Don't do that. Like, if you want to ask someone out on a date, ask someone out on a date. Do not be like, ah, yes, I will bide my time by pretending to be this person's friend for half a year or a year or years, and then I'll spring it on them that I've never really been their friend. I just want to get in their pants. That's disgusting. That's disgusting behavior. Tucker White 94, the fact that there's people who unironically like Ben Shapiro gives me no hope for the species. Oh, I've had no hope for a really long time. So, I don't know where you've been.
Because you can't be friends with somebody, but because you're thinking in different terms, right? What you want from the relationship is a thing that's never going to happen. And so, you know, thinking of yourself as like the backup guy is really a bad way of going about it. You're putting yourself in a position for hurt.
Why is that the alternative? If you were genuinely friends before she said no, it'll probably hurt you for a while, because having a crush on someone and then having them reject you because they don't feel the same way, undoubtedly that can hurt. But, like, as a human being, you can get over that and eventually just continue to be friends like a normal person. Now, you're not obligated to do so. If you're hurt enough by something and you don't feel that the relationship can continue because that's just not where your head's at, I guess that's fine. That's on you. But, like, if you were getting in the entire friendship in the first place just to be in a relationship, very weird. Kind of manipulative.
And also, it's awkward for her, right? Because she knows that every time you see her, you're probably thinking about wanting to be more than friends. And so what exactly is the upside for her? I've never been a fan of the, I don't want to go out with you, but I still want to be friends. Well, you know, I got a lot of friends, frankly. Like, and if I wanted to be friends, I wouldn't have asked you out. I don't ask out my friends, right? Like, that's typically not a thing I do. So, yeah, I think it's a mistake. Guys tend to do this. They tend to hang around thinking, well, maybe I'll get lucky at one point and she'll change her mind. No, if she wants to change her mind, she can change her mind whether you are hanging out near her or not. And in fact, may in fact be an inhibiting factor for you to be quote-unquote friends because she feels like she has the convenience of being able
I just noticed he has a mug that says leftist tears.
to call you and talk to you about all of her life problems without actually having to engage in a serious relationship.
You guys see that? It says leftist tears. It's right down here on the bottom left.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, you described the situation perfectly. I mean, like a lot of sense.
Appreciate the call, Julius. All righty. Ezra, New Jersey, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Ezra.
Hi, Ben. How are you? Thank you so much for answering my call.
You bet. Go for it.
So my question is, should a man wait till he has the resources to properly get married, or should he date freely just to have fun?
Oh, God. Why don't you do whatever makes you happy? How about that?
You should never date to have fun.
There it is.
Dating to have fun is because you're an ass. Seriously, this is really... I think dating for fun... First of all, dating is not fun unless...
Are we sure? Ben's like not... Ben, are you sure you're straight? Like, if you're not having fun going on dates, even now, like with your wife, if you're not having fun being with her, are you sure you're into ladies? Like, what? Like, what? Ben! Please, Ben! You can be happy. Just be happy, Ben.
Unless you're dating because you really have very little care or compassion for the person who you are dating. Because, you know, I know that we live in a society where consent is the only value. And
oh, no? I've seen people on the right say the same thing, like, the left only cares about one thing in regard to relationships, and that's consent. Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, you're right. I agree. Ask Compy with a bit. I don't think it's that he's not into ladies. I think he's just not into fun. That could be it. Tucker White 94. I know people have strange kinks, but it baffles me that there's a woman who wanted to marry Ben Shapiro. Yeah.
And consent is an extremely high value, right? It is a necessary requirement. But it is necessary, but not sufficient. Okay, just because someone consents to do something does not mean, as we have learned, that they are going to particularly find that thing fulfilling or wonderful.
Okay, but people are adults, right? And if someone consents to do something, you both want to do it, you can do it. And the implication that, like, dating for fun without the intent of a long-term relationship, as long as everyone involved is on the same page, implying that that's somehow inherently either dangerous or morally corrupt in some way, it's just not founded in anything. Like, as long as you're staying safe and wearing protection or whatever, it's fine. I don't understand this idea that, like, oh, it's basically coming from a place of it's sinful, which is not a worldview that jives with reality, right? It involves a necessary belief in, like, a God that dictates that this is wrong, and it's wrong because God dictates so. And that's a very narrow worldview to come at things from. At least he agrees consent is important. I think he has to pay lip service to that. I really don't know how much he gives a crap about that. Krista Willow, Twitch felt you should know. Oh, because you subscribed for 4 months with a streak. Thank you. 74, Quinn, 74. Everything always has to be 100% serious all the time, obviously.
Like, you know this in any relationship you have with somebody that you actually love, which is that just because someone consents to do something doesn't mean that they actually want to do it. They may be doing it for you.
That's coercive consent, and that's not consent, Ben. Have you listened to literally anything the left has been saying, or I should even just say reasonable people have been saying about consent for the last decade and a half?
They may be doing it because they feel there's not a lot of alternative. Now, in a business transaction, all you're looking...
Why does he have to compare everything to a business? Ben, we're talking about relationships and consent. We are not talking about, like, getting employees and filing contracts.
For is consent. But I don't think that love is a business transaction. I think that love is supposed to be about something more than that. Relationships are supposed to be about something more than that. I know that men find it very convenient to boil down all sexual relationships into mere issues of consent, and now the feminist movement has bought into this as well.
What? What? I wish more men on the whole, like, we're like, yeah, consent, I completely understand and accept this as the necessary thing for relationships. I think most men probably do, but there's, you know. Anyway, Ben, consent is key, because beyond that, that's going to be people's personal opinions. If someone's personal opinion is that they're Jewish or they're Christian or they're some other religion and they want to save themselves for marriage, that's their business. And that is involved in their consent, right? They will not consent because their worldview is that they should not be involved in that sort of physical relationship until they're married, and that's fine. But if someone's like secular, or even if they're religious and they don't think that some sort of sexual purity is a real thing, and they're completely fine having sex with other people, then that's consent, and that's all that's needed. Like, Ben, are you seriously saying that we should, like, admonish or, like, punish adults for consenting and doing things they want? Like, you're on the right. Aren't you supposed to care about liberty and people's right to do things they want to do? Why all of a sudden are you coming in and policing what people do between themselves? It's very strange. Tucker White 24. I'll give Ben Shapiro this. If even the biggest sticks in the mud like him can find love, then there's hope for the rest of us hopeless schmucks. True.
But if you care about somebody, then consent is just the first step, right? Then it should be, why are you consenting because you actually would like to have a relationship? Would you like us to have something more long-term?
If that's something that's important to you. But there are people who date and just hook up and they're fine with that. And that's their business.
Like, if it's just, you know, if everything is purely on the level, then that is one thing. But very rare, that really only happens on TV, right? The notion that guys go up to girls and they're like, you want to have one night in the sack and let's do it. And the girl's like, yeah, let's do it. And it's just for fun. Like, that is not...
Ben, Tinder exists. People do hook up. And that's fine. Not everyone's into that. It's not something that sounds good to me. But, like, if other people do that, that's perfectly fine.
The way that people tend to actually engage with sex, particularly not women. One of my favorite social science experiments ever done. There's this great social science experiment that was done at a college where they sent an attractive girl into a bar. And they asked her to basically walk up to 100 guys and say, do you want to spend the night? And out of the 100 guys, like 97 of them were like, absolutely. And then they sent an attractive guy into a bar to ask girls, would you like to spend the night? And out of 100 girls, 0 of them said yes.
Yeah, there are sociological reasons for that, Ben. Like, let's say I'm a woman in a bar, and let's say I pass and I'm attractive, or even let's say I'm a cis woman. Let's even say no, I'm in a bar myself, right? And I get, and I'm not in a relationship in this scenario, and I get approached by an attractive man who's like, hey, you wanna go back to my place? I'm gonna say no. You know why? Because I think he'll murder me! That's not a concern for men. That's not a concern for men, of, like, being murdered by women who pick them up. Not that it doesn't ever happen, it's just not at the forefront of men's minds, typically speaking. But if some rando comes up to me and says, hey, you want to get out of
There's
here?
nothing funny about the
I'm
tools
gonna
of
assume they
capitalism.
want to murder me. Tucker White 94, something's missing here. Ben's yet to mention that his doctor's a wife who is a doctor.
Right? Men and women do not think about sex the same way. And it is very flattering for men to believe that women think about sex the same way that men do. They do not. Okay, there's a lot more emotional attachment. This is why, for example, in surveys of sexual satisfaction, one of the main factors in female sexual satisfaction is always the depth of the relationship, is a level of comfortableness.
I think part of that probably has to do with the fact that it's always a concern for women in sexual situations that they feel safe. Again, this has to do with, like, sociological factors. Like, women feeling safe during sex is incredibly important, whereas I don't think it's something men think about a lot. I don't think men think about, do I feel safe in this sexual situation? Because I'd imagine 99% of the time they do, because they typically have the power in the situation. And what I mean by that is, in most situations, on average, men are going to be bigger, stronger, whatever. And in this particular scenario of, like, coupling, it's a very vulnerable position, let's say. So, I think that more has to do with just, like, safety concerns that men don't even consider in regard to sex. Even with someone you're in a relationship with. Like, I just don't think it's something that crosses a lot of dudes' minds.
Right? Men, it doesn't tend to be really a factor, is the comfort level. But for women, it really matters an awful lot. And so if you are dating for quote-unquote fun, it's because you actually don't care enough about the person you're dating to make it about more than fun, Ezra. And I think that that's a shortcoming morally.
It's not. If people are fine being in relationships that they don't know are going to last, like, forever or for long term, that's fine. That's their business. It's not my place to get in the middle of two consenting adults, two enthusiastically consenting adults. It's not my place to get in between them and be like, what you're doing is wrong. Like, says who, Ben? And I know you're going to say, well, the Bible says... Or you'll say, well, the Torah says, the Old Testament, the first 5 books of the Bible, whatever. And Ben, if that's how you feel about it, that's fine. But applying your moral religious beliefs to others who don't feel the same is a fruitless endeavor. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of their time. Just don't do it.
So, Ben, but what about, I'm talking about, like, the financial resources. Like, a lot of men, especially now, they're unemployed. Especially I live in New York. A lot of people are unemployed. They basically living off unemployment. Should we start dating, or should we wait till the economy gets better?
Well, I mean, are you intending on getting a job, and then are you intending on getting a job at some point? Like, I don't think that I think you can get married.
I started my own company, and I'm waiting. Right now, I'm not getting a salary, but I started my own company.
Yes, yeah, so, I mean, if the understanding is that you are going to be dating for marriage, and that in the course of that marriage you're going to increase your income, then I don't think that marriage is the chief gap there, right? I think that marriage and finances are a lot more separate than having children and finances, frankly. I think that two consenting adults can get married understanding they're going to experience financial...
So, two consenting adults, I'm going to assume
about the tools of
enthusiastically.
capitalism.
Just assume when I say consenting, I'm saying enthusiastically. So, Ben's opinion is that two adults, no matter what, can consent to tie themselves to each other legally, but they can't decide to go to the bone zone because that's morally repugnant. This is how a child thinks. This is not how an adult should view other adults and their decisions.
Hardship, and I don't...
Tucker White 94, well, I'm convinced, Hannah, you and Baja need to cease your fun tomfoolery and get married.
I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Most people, when they get married, are a lot poorer than they are later on in their marriage, just because people get richer as they age.
It really depends. In the past, that's been the case if you're white, that, yeah, typically your resources and your wealth grows as you get older, but these days, it really is really dependent upon your situation. There are a ton of working class people that absolutely cannot get ahead, and it's just going to get worse from here if we don't do major reforms to our economic systems.
But having kids is a different story. You want to bring kids into a situation where presumably they know where the next meal is coming from. Getting married is a bit of a different thing. I think that you can get married when you're not making a lot of money, and I think that that's not only not bad, I think that that can be, in many cases, quite good. I think that having kids when you don't have enough money to support the kids is a different story. I appreciate the call, Ezra. Frankie in Michigan, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Frankie.
Hi, Ben. So I have a question for you. My boyfriend and I are both gay, and we've...
Oh, God, we got a gay couple talking. Let's see how Ben handles this. Bobbing for giblets. Most people are one medical problem away from perpetual debt. Yeah, it's disgusting. And then 100 bits from the name that I can't pronounce. He is vibrating. How fast do you think his foot is tapping under that table? Oh, God. Yeah, you're not kidding. That's stuff that, like, my dad did, too. He's got that same, like, energy where he's like, where they could probably stand to be medicated for something, but they don't believe in, like, mental wellness, so they, like, just deal with whatever anxiety that's, like, driving their frenetic energy.
been questioned how we can be
It's for fat unicorns backwards? Okay.
conservative despite
Thank
being
you.
gay. I say it's because I value things that conservatives do. Like, I'm even against how Obergefell was decided, which...
Excuse me, Ben, I am a homosexual. However, I very much disagree with the Supreme Court decision that gave me equal rights to marry. Oh, this is not a person I'd like to meet in real life.
It's really
There's
baffles
nothing
some
funny
people.
about the tools of capitalism.
Tucker White 94. Oh noes, the pure Judeo-Christian show has been defiled by the gay. This was sarcastic, yeah, I know.
But I guess my question is, how do I explain to people that conservatism isn't necessarily anti-gay?
Spoilers! It is. And Ben Shapiro's a weird person to talk to about this, because Ben Shapiro's not fond of, like, gay people or gay marriage. He thinks it's wicked and a sin. Jake and I, over on the Hannah and Jake channel, are doing a reading of Ben Shapiro, or not Ben Shapiro, sorry, rather, of Dave Rubin's book, and he even mentions in his chapter on gay marriage that Ben Shapiro is still, even though he's friends with Dave Rubin, who is gay, if you don't know, and is married to his husband, Ben Shapiro is still against their marriage, even though they're friends. Friends. It's ridiculous.
So I think that conservatism is about the idea that
There's
a
nothing funny
limited
about
government
the tools of
exists in
capitalism.
order to protect your rights, and that
Daddy Sume with a bit. Speaking of Ben Shapiro's book, what happened to the reading of it? It wasn't that interesting, and it was an old one. I'm sure we'll do another Ben Shapiro book at some point.
we as individuals have God-given rights. That doesn't mean there's not diversity inside the conservative coalition.
It typically does, because again, when they talk about preserving the rights of the individual, usually what they mean is we're going to preserve the rights of companies to fuck over the individual. It has nothing to do with actually making sure that you have rights, whether you're gay or straight or trans or black or white, because historically speaking, that hasn't been the case. People on the right have fought against every single time the individual rights of certain people were being infringed upon by the government. Recently, Obergefell v. Hodges. Even more recently, there was the Supreme Court decision that talked about trans people and gay people not being able to be fired from their jobs. Before that, like the civil rights movement, which was opposed by people on the right. Like, again, if conservatives ever say to your face, oh, conservatism is about the rights of the individual, laugh at them, because they're lying. I don't know if they're lying to themselves or they're lying to you. I'm not saying they're being dishonest intentionally, but the fact that they even believe that line is hilarious. Conservatives have consistently throughout history done the opposite of protect people's rights. Even back to the Civil War, even though the political parties at the time were different, and the Democrats were the ones that were for preserving slavery because the Southern strategy hadn't happened yet, back then, Democrats were the conservatives, and Republicans were progressive for pushing for, again, preserving the Union and ending this institution of slavery. So, nowhere in history has conservatism been like, it's time to fight for the rights of the downtrodden. It just does. It's not. It's antithetical to conservatism.
With regard to how people feel about the morality of homosexuality, it does mean that when you are talking about government policy and what government's role is in society, you can have broad agreement that a limited government is a good idea, and that really has nothing to do with sexual orientation. Frankly, I'm sort of bewildered by the notion that if you're in favor of a small government that intervenes less in people's lives and gives them more freedom, that somehow this cuts against the ability of any gay person to be conservative.
And yet Republicans fought against gay marriage tooth and nail for decades. Weird how that works, Ben. Tucker White 94. No, Hannah, it wasn't the conservatives that hated black people. It was the Democrats, because the parties never switched. And Daddy Sume, I am the downtrodden. Me, a white middle class, mostly male. I am oppressed.
I know plenty of gay conservatives, ranging from Dave Rubin to Guy Benson, and
those are two of them, yeah.
All they say about this is...
That's not really a wide range, though, is it, Ben? Those are two gay conservatives, you know.
Is that their priorities politically match up with the Republican Party.
Because they're wealthy. They're wealthy. This is something that I think more people could stand to think about. Once you get above a certain income or once you get above a certain wealth bracket, social issues, if you're a selfish person, no longer matter to you, and you start aligning yourself with your wealth class rather than your actual identity. Specifically because, let's say you're rich and you're gay, or you're rich and you're trans. Look at Caitlyn Jenner for a good example of this. They do things that are antithetical to the cause of being trans or being gay or whatever, but the reason they're able to do this comfortably is because they're rich and they're insulated from literally every consequence negative in society that happens to people for being in these minority groups. Caitlyn Jenner, who voted for Trump, will never have to worry about being unemployed because she's trans. She will never have to worry about not getting health insurance or not being provided health care because she's rich. Those problems just don't apply to those people. So if you ever wonder, like, boy, why do rich gay people or rich trans people tend to be more right-leaning? It's because they're completely insulated from the problems that are caused in our society by being a minority. That's why. Daddy Sume, those are the two. Can you name a third? Yeah.
By the way, there are many people inside the Republican Party who personally believe on a moral level that homosexuality...
Does Rubin identify as a conservative now? Yeah. Even if he didn't identify as one, it's clear he is one. But yes, at this point he has said, like, I'm a conservative now.
May be a religious sin, right? I'm an Orthodox Jew. That is something that Orthodox Jews believe. And also believe the government has no role in regulating this sort of stuff. I mean, I was libertarian on gay marriage before it was cool to be libertarian on gay marriage, Frankie.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much for that, Ben. And congrats to you and the Daily Wire team to move to Nashville, too.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. All righty. Kenny in Indiana, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Kenny.
Hey, Ben. It's great to be on the show. I'm calling. Me and my wife, we've been together about 10 years. We had 2 children. And I've obviously been into politics quite a bit.
He didn't answer that question at all. Yeah, not really.
Your show, right?
I think there was a question earlier he didn't really answer either.
Regularly,
He's bad at
I
this.
follow quite a bit of other political sources as well. My question really comes to my wife has just absolutely zero interest whatsoever. So I'll get her to go out and vote every 4 years. She pretty much votes however I do.
That's gross. If you are not interested in politics whatsoever, but your partner is, I don't know why you'd be watching this show if you're not interested in politics at all. But, like, let's say you have a partner who's not interested in politics at all, and you just, like, tell them how they should vote, and they vote every 4 years. Don't do that. Like, people who are not informed shouldn't vote. I'm not saying there should be a test, like, to determine if you should be able to vote, because you can't do stuff like that, and I don't think that's right. But I do think if you're an uninformed person and you don't know what's going on in your own country to have an informed vote, then you should abstain from voting. The idea that someone's like, well, I don't really follow politics, but my husband's voting for Trump, or even if it's the opposite, oh, I don't really follow politics, but my husband's voting for Biden, so I will too. That's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. Do not vote if you don't know why you're voting for someone. Tucker White 94, I hate that I now share the same state as Ben Shapiro. Good luck with that.
Which is great, I guess.
You thought Ben Shapiro was against gay marriage? He is, morally speaking. Ben Shapiro does not like gay marriage. He has said, and in Dave Rubin's book, which we've read, Dave explicitly talks about how Ben Shapiro disagrees with his marriage. He doesn't think gay people should get married. He's claiming he doesn't care that it's legal now, but I don't think that's the case. Because he morally disagrees. Because he's a conservative Jewish individual, and the Bible, the Old Testament included, does include things that are like, hey, don't be gay. A man shouldn't sleep with a man as one sleeps with a woman. It says that in the Old Testament, and the Old Testament is Jewish. So he follows that, and he thinks it's morally repugnant, basically.
But
his position, as far as I understand, is that he doesn't think government should be involved in marriage at all, which is silly, but that is his opinion. But he is morally opposed. Bobbin for giblets. We gotta vote for the guy that has hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun because Corn Pop was a bad dude. I have no idea what any of that means.
I'm curious what your thoughts would be like. How would you go about, getting her more involved in it and something that she would, take an interest in? What would be some suggestions you may have for that?
So number one, if she's not interested in politics, I think you might want to count yourself fortunate, Kenny. Frankly, it doesn't sound like she is deeply invested in politics. That's okay. My wife is not deeply invested in politics. Like, she finds it interesting, and she finds it sort of interesting on a baseline values level. And she'll listen to my show when she's in the car or something. But I think that building.
Imagine being married to Ben Shapiro and not being interested in politics. That's wild. Does she even understand? Does she even understand who he is and what he does relative to the rest of the American politosphere?
A life around a certain level of assumed shared values is fine. It doesn't mean you have to discuss politics all that often. This is what you have friends for. I have lots of friends I discuss politics with far more often than I discuss politics with my wife. I think the real danger comes when you have directly opposing political points of view, because usually that reflects underlying values gaps that make it difficult to build a life together. But frankly, find something else to talk about. I mean, like, I rarely talk politics with my wife. It's very rare, especially because we usually agree. So,
Daddy Sume with a bit. Imagine being married to Ben Shapiro and not getting enough of him at home that you need to listen to his radio show in the car, too.
There's lots of other things to talk about, like our kids, the life that we are building together. We talk about the Bible. We talk about entertainment options. We talk about lots of different stuff.
That's interesting to me. Like, Ben Shapiro's Jewish. Like, why does he care about the New Testament of the Bible? Why wouldn't he want to just talk about, like, the Old Testament on its own? Very interesting.
It tends to be pretty low on the list, though.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate it and enjoy Nashville. I'm sure you'll like it a lot better.
Thanks, Kenny. The Daily Wire will definitely enjoy Nashville better than California for a whole variety of reasons. John in Arizona, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, John.
Hey, John. Sorry, man.
No worries. Go for it.
I'm just a little nervous. I'm a huge fan, and I'm 16, and I was just wondering. I don't see. I'm going to the University of Arizona soon, and I was just wondering, is it possible to marry somebody that isn't conservative, doesn't have conservative values, and because a lot of my friends,
Ben's gonna say no. He just answered this question basically with the previous person. He was saying, like, I don't think if you have differing values that you should be together.
America, that's the whole thing when you're young.
I do wonder what's gonna happen because, there are certainly conservative women, which I always find wild. But hey, people have the right to do whatever they want and believe whatever they want. There are certainly, I would think, fewer conservative women than men, especially of the brand that are like hardcore Trump fans. I imagine there are way more young men who are very invested in Donald Trump and his kind of politics than there are women. So what's going to happen as they continue to get older and can't find a partner who politically meshes with them? Because I can't see anyone who's a reasonable person just being like, well, we disagree and they're a Donald Trump supporter, but I guess I love them anyway. You know what I mean? Because being like a Donald Trump supporter, it's not just about the support for Donald Trump. There's a lot of underlying, really ridiculous, disgusting worldview stuff that has to go into supporting Donald Trump, right? And there's also just like an attitude issue. If you've ever seen like Trump supporters talk about anything, they got a really bad attitude and they're like vicious, rude, all sorts of things. So I do wonder, like, what's going to happen to these people when they just can't find anyone because of their repugnant worldviews? They're called incels, Hannah. True.
For a lot of kids. So I was just wondering, how is it possible to date or marry somebody that doesn't have conservative values.
Don't do it. When I say conservative values, I don't mean votes Republican. I mean shares values about how you want to raise your kids, your values on gender, your values on morality and sin, your values on religion, right? I think that the more things you share in common in terms of core values, the more likely you're...
Baha, what are your positions on morality and sin? I guess we need to have that discussion. Bobbing for giblets. Here's the hairy legs clip. Okay. Oh, God. Biden recounts harrowing incident with a gang leader named Corn Pop.
I learned a lot. And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and there weren't allowed to, there was a 3-meter board. And if you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there.
Andrew Dickerson, if he doesn't hate LGBT people, then she's not or if she doesn't hate LGBT people, then she's not conservative.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did. And back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use
Catalina
was
Gearbox
your hair,
says,
you
I
had
have
to wear a bathing cap.
cheesecake. I hope it's delicious.
And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off.
Baja Blast says, do all the sin and morally don't be a shit person. Good. I'm glad we're on the same page.
And he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors.
Is Rick rolling a sin? It's the most grievous of sins.
Not a joke. There's a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where mechanics, where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded
Daddy
up,
is
said,
a
you walk
naughty
out
sinner,
with that
giggity.
chain.
Yikes.
And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me?
Elsie
He
Huff,
said,
thanks
no,
for
if you
following.
don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And they had, in those days, you used to remember the straight razor, you'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty.
E. Clark says, so I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. Way back in 19-diggity-doo, we had to call it diggity because the Kaiser took our word for 20.
Rusty, put them in the rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that. I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me? I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, close the straight razor, and my heart began to beat again.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Biden does ramble like an old man. He reminds me of my grandfather, like a lot. The one that's still alive. But he's better than Trump, so please vote for Joe Biden in November. I'll take all the stories about Corn Pop over insane ramblings about, like, not counting people's votes. That'd be great. Guys, can we all agree that weird rambly stories about a guy named Corn Pop are better than fascism? I think we should all agree to that, right? Okay.
Relationship is to be successful. You know, it seems that simple common interests in entertainment choices is not going to be enough. So my answer is don't. How do you date somebody who is different from you politically, like radically different and committed to that radical difference? I think that it's generally a mistake. Sometimes political differences don't implicate values. In that case, fine. But very often they do. And so you should really consider seriously before you jump into a relationship. And if you're looking for a conservative, honestly, I'd start with your local church, because that's usually where somebody who shares your values is probably going to be.
Oh, Ben. I guess that's his advice. A lot of it was fine. A lot of it was bad. Here's the hairy legs part. At least Biden's rambling story ended with nobody getting hurt. Yeah.
No, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn turn blonde in the sun.
Oh, Biden.